listing unprepared, unfocused, and not ready to I guess the best way to describe it is like slay that dragon when they get there. So in the process of a listing, the one piece of advice that I want you to take from me and just really remember to do is, if it gets hot in here, I don't want them to hear this at the hall, is before you do anything, when you walk into that listing appointment, sit in your car for a second and just kind of get in the zone. I know that sounds silly. I know it sounds simple, but a lot of times the problem is we as realtors rush from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. I've already been to about 18 places this morning, and I've got about 36 more to go this afternoon. So it's very much a rushed profession that we live in. But if you get too rushed and you don't sit down and take the minute to analyze, okay, I'm going on this appointment. These are my goals. This is what I want to get out of the next probably hour and a half to 2 hours, because that's usually how long a listing appointment takes. It's going to take, I need this result. So you sit in your car right before you come in, even if they're waving at you out the door, like, hi, I'm ready to come in. You just hold your finger and say, hold on a second, and you just kind of, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, because a lot of times that whole rushed profession that we have bleeds into whatever we're doing. So if you walk into a listing appointment, you're like, oh my gosh, it's been the craziest day. It doesn't set the tone. And the minute, and perception's everything. I've learned this in life. I'm not too terribly old, but old enough to learn that perception's everything. And the first perception that you set is that you want them to trust you and believe that you're there thinking about them and not about the other 36 things you have to do today. So do that for me. Get in the zone before you go on the listing appointment. Visualize what you want to get out of that listing appointment, and I guarantee you that your appointments will be much more successful. So there's a couple tips that I want to give you prior to a listing appointment, and then we're going to actually go over the listing paperwork, because I want to make sure you understand who here has had, raise your hand or yell out, who here has actually taken a listing. Have either of you yet? Okay, I know Cindy has. Have you, Angie? You've had listings, right?
I've had listings before in the past.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh. I've had listings before in the past.
Just give me a thumbs up. You've had a listing or no? Okay, yes, okay. Yes. I think Paul's got everybody muted right now.
I could hear you.
Prior to going on that listing, the first thing you want to do is you want to have a pre-listing sheet. The pre-listing sheet is a form, and as soon as they print me off my packet, I will give it to you. That I said, print me a packet, and she thought I said I had the packets printed, and it's okay. Can you not hear me?
I know we could hear you. You couldn't hear her. She was talking.
So anyway, you have a questionnaire of sorts. The kind of questions that are going to be on this packet are things about the house, things that you can't go online and see. What repairs have you done in the time that you lived there? What are the newest repairs that you've done in the last 30, 60 to 90 days? They may have replaced a water heater 5 years ago, but a 5-year-old water heater isn't that great today. They may have replaced the roof 4 years ago, and a 4-year-old roof is valuable today. So you kind of have to get an idea of all the repairs and replacements that have been done. So that way, when you're looking at the comps, you can compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So then you ask questions like, when you were buying this house, what was your most favorite part about it? What told you that this was the home that you wanted to live in for the next so many years? Because the reality of it is what they loved about it is probably going to be what someone else loves about it. And I told you this when I was listing your house. I listed your house a long time ago, so I'm sitting here going, I'm telling you my secrets. It's not fake, I promise. It's all genuine. But that is the truth. If it's a huge flat backyard that's fenced in, chances are the person that buys it's going to buy it because they're looking for a flat backyard that's fenced in. If it's got an ensuite primary bathroom, then That's probably why they're looking at it to begin with. So ask them those things. Number two, that helps you with your marketing remarks later, because if they're going to gloat about something that they own, not gloat, but be excited about something that they own, then you can use those for marketing remarks later. And also it will you ask questions about bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, if there's ever been any additions. You just get them to tell you everything about the house that they can tell you. And then you set the appointment to go list it. So now you've got an appointment, and now you have your information sheet that tells you all about the house. The first step is you go in and you look up solds. You compare square footage. So for instance, this is not a science. So this is what Chrissy Gooch does. If you talk to, and now I don't have this, none of this is in this, that's just the exclusive right to sell. If you talk to another agent, they may do something totally different. I was actually teasing someone the other day, and they were like, what is it? Just to lick your finger and stick it up in the air kind of thing when you're listing? And I'm like, because the reality of it is it's a price opinion. And a prime example is that I had two appraisers appraise one fourplex within 3 weeks of each other. One appraised the fourplex for $400,000. The other one appraised the fourplex for $515,000. We were $115,000 different in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. So it is a price opinion, and we need to remember that. So you have your questionnaire sheet and you have your listing appointment. You're going on to Flex and you are searching. The first thing I want you to do is to search for that house within parameters. If it's got 1,500 square feet, I want you looking between 1,300 and 1,700. If it's got 4 bedrooms and 2 baths, I want you looking for, 3 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms. I want you to kind of widen your parameters, because if it's a kind of a tight market like we've had the last couple of years, you might be deducting bedroom value off. The really cool part though about the way we do these now versus the way we've done them before is we'll just leave them here. I'll just check this out. Okay. The cool part about it is that now appraisers, instead of, I feel like I need to hold something or I talk with my hands all the time. Appraisers, instead of saying it's 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a bathroom, and then list out all these individual rooms, they don't do that anymore. Now they're doing this many rooms in a house plus a kitchen and a bathroom, this many square footage. They've based it all now on livable space instead of identifying how many bedrooms and bathrooms, because an 1,800 square foot home with 3 bedrooms might be worth the same amount of money as an 1,800 square foot home with 4 bedrooms, because it's still the same amount of money to build that house. So you don't always get caught up on how many bedrooms there are. Bathrooms have value. Bathrooms are usually, depending on the finishes, a half bath is between $3,000 and $5,000. If it's some glorious, luxurious, extreme bathroom, you're obviously going to have to do more adjustments on that. But if most houses, you can look at square footage versus square footage, and if all the other things are close, then you'll probably come up with your price. Then once you search the solds, I want you to save them in Flex, or print them off, or write the numbers down so you can go back and reference them. I think you can actually back up in the Flex app and add actives to it. I want you to look at the solds first, because I want you to see the way houses have been selling. Have they been listing at $250 and selling for $265? Is there a huge price difference in the negative? Have they been listing for $265 and actually selling for $250? That kind of gives you an idea of the percentage of adjustment that most sellers are making in the area on the sales price. Then I want you to look at actives, and I want you to compare the actives that match your comp. I want you to compare that to the solds and see if you can determine whether or not they're going to go for higher or if they're gonna go where they are, or if they're gonna go for lower. The reason this isn't a science, like I had said before, is simply because it is you taking all of the current data that you have, throwing it into your brain, shaking it up, and trying to figure out exactly what the future holds for this buyer or this seller. So now you have closed, now you have actives, and once you compare the two, you will start to see a pattern. I'm not going to do it today because it would take us an hour, 2 hours, depending on how many questions we have. But that's the beginning process of doing comparable sales for a listing. Anyone in the room that needs to sit down and do your first one with me or your mentor, please take them up on it, because you do not want to be the agent that looks up in a house appraises for 260 and you have it under contract for 230 because you didn't ask for help. So make sure that if you, one, have never done one before, you get with your mentor, and two, if you are struggling at all in the price of pricing a house, make sure that you ask for help, because a lot of realtors can help you out on that, me or anyone else. So once you pull comps and you get everything together and you come up with your price, then you are ready to discuss value. But I don't want you taking those comps to the house and saying, here's what I've determined your house price to be. I want you to go in there and, without sitting down, sit your stuff down, find a table, doesn't matter anywhere, find a table, sit your stuff down, pick up your notebook, because you should always have a notebook and pen, and say, give me a tour. I would love to see your house and everything you've done to it. Give me a tour. Let them walk you around the house and ask all the questions that come to your mind. There is no such thing as a stupid question. If you step over a hole in the floor, ask them, oh, well, how did that get there? Don't be like, dude, you got a hole in your floor. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Be personal about it, but oh, how did that get there? And then they're going to tell you however that hole got there. If there is an oddly color painted room, you can make a comment of, well, this is festive. What made you paint the room this color? And then when they tell you, you can then lead in to say, most buyers get really distracted from brightly colored painted walls. I'm wondering if there's a possibility of getting this painted a neutral color. And so you're having a conversation with them as you go through the house. You're doing two things. You're building rapport with the buyer or the seller. I'm sorry, I'll do that 1,000 times. You're building rapport with the buyer, and you are conversing about things that you see that need attention in a very unnegative fashion. People get highly offended easily when you're walking through their house and you start pointing out things that are in need of repair, delayed maintenance, or whatever it is. I was actually, who's on this call? No, nobody knows them. I was actually sitting, at least I hope you know, in a house that I'm about to put on the market next week. And the lady looks at me as I'm dusting off dog hair, cookie crumbs. I mean, I didn't want to sit down, if that makes any sense. I had 2 dogs, getting another one. Oh, come on, Rosie, I'm so excited. But I'm a freak when it comes to dog hair. Like, I get it up. If I see a piece, I'll pick it up. But anyway, she looks at me and she says, I'm going to have someone come clean this house weekly. So she asked me for a reference while the house is listed for sale, because I just cannot live in a dirty house. And I was like, huh. And I wanted to go, what? But I was like, okay, here's the reference. You absolutely should have this cleaned every single week while we have this house on the market, because if you don't, we're probably not going to sell it, is what I was saying in my head. But her version of clean and my over the top, ridiculous, germaphobe version of clean are two totally different things. And that's okay. It doesn't make her wrong. It doesn't make me right. But in the end, I gave her the service that she wanted, meaning a name for a cleaning lady. So that's why you have to be super careful, because you may think when I come in and I go, gosh, don't you wish these dark floors would go out of style? I'm so ready to see light and bright. And then they look at you and go, I just laid these last week. Yeah. That would be a Christy move. Foot, mouth, totally right there with you. So just be cautious about what you're saying when you're on the tour, but do it in a way that's communicable, like you're communicating. It's not a one-sided conversation. Then when you're done giving the tour, you look at them, I gotta take this off, and you say, where would you like me to sit? Because there's a ton of cultures where if you sit in the wrong spot, you have totally just gutted yourself, might as well get up and leave. So just say, where would you like me to sit? And they'll probably go anywhere, pick a spot and be like, okay, would you like me, is it okay if I sit here? Always ask permission. You're in someone else's home. There was one time that a man, I just sat down and he looked at me and he goes, that's my chair. I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, didn't know we had some seats today, but I've learned my lesson, learn from my lessons, don't make the mistakes on your own. So always do that. And then go through with them again, the things that you saw in the walkthrough or the tour. And ask them if there's anything that they feel like they need to do prior to putting the house on the market. So that way you can jot those things down. Then you can actually say, let me think of something silly that doesn't even matter. I'm going to use border. Let's say there's this beautiful grapevine border from 1994 around the kitchen thing, but everything else in the kitchen is beautiful and you don't really notice the border. They would take the border down, but not paint that god-awful color bedroom. You can say to them, how about we use the energy to paint that bedroom and just leave the border? The border's not bad. And then you're literally negotiating with them on things you can get them to do that you know will help them versus things that may not. Then they may ask you questions about, well, what if we get the bathroom and redo it? Are we going to get our money back? Well, it depends on your price point and it depends on the current condition of the bathroom. So all those things are conversations that you have during the listing appointment. After you've went through and done everything and looked at the house, you have your comps, you know what you think it should be worth. You can sit at the table and you decide at that moment if you have enough information to share your comps. Sometimes you get there and the house is absolutely different than what you expected, and you got to go back to the drawing board. It is no problem to say, you know, the best process for me is to look at comps before I get here, come and see the property, and then go back to my office and study the market. That way I give you the best price, and then tell them when you will have the comps back to them, and don't miss that deadline. Because you're setting up boundaries and you're setting up trust. If you don't follow through, they're not going to trust you. So you don't always have to give the listing price at the listing appointment. You can do it a day later. You can do it that evening. You can do it if you meet them in the morning. You can do it by noon. You don't always have to give it at the time of the listing appointment. But let's say for today's class that you do, and you decided on $259.9. That's what it's going to be listed at, and it's on 133 Cherry Street. I'll never remember these, so write them down because I'll never remember these. And you're ready to fill out your listing paperwork. This is probably the easiest contract you will ever fill out because there's only a couple questions. On the first sheet, Paul, are you ready to man my scrolling? Yep, you're moving it, so you are. Okay. So on the first sheet, you're going to see in consideration of your agreement to list the property for sale described as. That is the home address, the mailing address. You will run into times where there is no address. It's a plat number. It's 5 acres on Shinaway Street. Like there's no information. If there has never been mail delivered to that address, it will not have a street address. You will have to use the street and the plat number that you find on the PDA. The real true description of any piece of real estate is that legal description in the deed. The address is just a fake little pretty name that we give it, so we can all just tell us how to get to places. So you write the address there and place this listing on the multiple listing service of the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors and use your efforts to find a purchaser. We do hereby agree. This is the terms of agency. Remember, agency means that you represent someone. So this is your term of representing the seller. We have the exclusive right and privilege commencing on June 1st, 2022, and ending. The average listing agreement is about 6 months. Right now, even though they're going in like 3 days, 3 or 4 days or 2 weeks, I still do 6 months. 6 months is a customary thing in our market. You don't have to do 6 months. You can do 3 months. You can do 9 months, but most sellers don't balk on a 6-month listing. When you get into a higher price range, when you get up over, I'm going to say 650, 700, I would stretch it out and do 9 or 12 months. And the reason for that is the higher you go in a price range. So down here, you've got under 250. Millions of people can afford under 250. You go from 250 to 500. A smaller group of population can afford that. And it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the price of the house goes up. So you have less buyers to market it to. So that's why you extend the time, because you want the maximum amount of time to list and sell a property. And if your pool of people that can afford it is so small, you want to make sure that you have the opportunity for that pool to circulate a couple times and for you to be able to sell it. So the commencing on is the day that you are going, the day that you are in the property. So if they say, well, today's June 1st, but I really don't want to put it on the market until June 8th. You're like, it's okay, that's fine. But because I'm here today, I am writing June 1st. Does anybody know why? Okay, you're getting there. You're close. So what, does anybody else know why? You can speak up through Zoom. No.
Yep, you can chat it or just unmute yourself.
So the reason you put it for the day that you're in the property, you are so close, is because if I'm here today and I've done the work and I'm setting up the pictures and I walk through your house and I'm telling you how much it's worth and I have done everything that I'm supposed to do as your fiduciary, as with them as your fiduciary. If you don't have the listing contract signed for the day you're there, the moment you walk out the door and it says June 6th, they got 5 days to sell without you. And a lot of people do. And it is very frustrating and you want to go kick their door down. But you can't because we're professionals. So you put it on the market for the day that you're sitting in that chair. And if they say to you, well, we don't want to list it yet, you're like, it's okay. As long as I keep this right here and I don't talk about it, we don't have to do anything. You can just act like it's not even going on the market until June 6th. That's the day we agree. Because the thing about coming soons and office exclusives and all that is that they're only in effect if you want to talk about that form. If you put it on, I have a listing that no one knows about. I'm telling the truth, I do have a listing that no one knows about. It's in Frankfurt and her name is Anna Clay. I've had this house listed, her aunt died 2 years ago. I've had this house listed for 2 years and I've never said a word about it because she's not ready to put on the market yet. But I've got it listed. If she sells that sucker, guess what? I get the commission. Because I protected myself because I've known this lady for a bazillion years and she'll use me, but her neighbor wants it really bad. So when I went up there to do the walkthrough and to do all the things, I said to her, we're going to go ahead and list this today, but I'm going to put this in my pocket. And if that neighbor comes knocking, you send him to me. And he has a couple times. So that is to protect you and your efforts. So you list it for the day you're in that chair and you do, let's say it's June 1st and they want to list it on June 6th, then you do 6 months from June 6th as your listing term. So it would be 6 months and 6 days technically, what would be on here. And then you write out the price like a check. Is there anyone here who hasn't ever written a check? Because my gracious, that is more common than I would like to admit. I said something to my kid, he's 17, I said, go write a check, go get my checkbook and just write a check. And he went, what? I was like, Venmo, you're just Venmo. You write the price up. So how much did I say you're listed for? 259, you write $259,900 and no cents. And then you draw that line. So that way it can never be altered on that paper. And if you're doing this on dot loop, they got that dash key and you just hit it until it fills in the line. And then below that, on the part below it, right there, thank you, you write it out, 259,900. Just like you would on the right side of a check. So now you have it numerically written and you have it written as a words. Your commission is the next one below. To pay said listing broker blank of the gross contract sales price as per closing documents for services in case the seller exchanges said property or any part of it with said listing period. Okay. All this paragraph here says, if I list Mary's house and Sharon comes along and says, hey, Mary, she's not gonna trouble. I'm gonna buy this directly from you, okay? Here's my attorney. We're gonna write it up and we're gonna buy this. Christy's probably gonna show up at your closing. Or if Christy gets wind, she's gonna put what's called a mechanics lien on your house. Because the mechanics lien is the only way a realtor can get their commission if the seller and buyer have squandered, I don't know what word I'm looking for. If the buyer and seller have been bad people and they tried to steal earnings from you, squandered off with your commission. That's what I was trying to say. But do realtors want to make a practice of putting mechanics liens on sellers' house? No, that is not what we want to do. However, it has come into play. We had a seller, and I know I'm telling you a bunch of stories, but I'm giving you examples of what actually happened in real life. We had a seller who wanted agents of ours to list his old, what is the thing that just closed in Kentucky? The restaurant, was it Western Texas Roadhouse? What was the one? It was a restaurant that just closed. I don't remember.
Logan's.
But this restaurant closed and he owned the building. He had no rent. He was freaking out. He lived in Alabama, I think. He was freaking out. He was like, oh my gosh, come sell my property. And our agents did. They made the calls, they did the work, they connected with Sonny's. They did all, they had it. It was funny because our agent actually wrote out on paper as she worked on the deal. So she completely had a timeline of all conversations and everything. And she didn't do it on purpose. It was just like, oh, I talked to him on this day and him on this day and them on this day. And then I called Sonny's and da-da-da-da-da. Because she was trying to share information with the other agent so they wouldn't call the same people. Well, the seller called our agent and said, you know, I'm just going to keep it off the market. I think I'm going to maybe open a restaurant on my own. I don't know. They took it off the market. I'm going to pause here and say withdrawal, which is a hard word for me to say, means you are removing it from the active side of the MLS, but you still have a listing contract. Cancel is if it was never there. They withdrew it. So they still had an active listing contract. They had just agreed to not market it anymore. And they were waiting for the contract to expire. In the meantime, Mr. Seller got wind or heard that Sonny's wanted his building. So he called Sonny's, who our client, our realtor, had already called. And she had the cat's name on the paper, which was very interesting. And they negotiated a lease with Sonny's. We didn't know about this. We didn't know about this for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, whatever it was. We didn't know about it. She was driving down US 60. It's right there in Frankfurt, going toward from for sales going to Frankfurt on the left. She was driving down the road. She looked over and son of a gun, if there wasn't a Sonny's thing on the side of the building. So she calls me and says, what do I do? And I said, this is where you've earned your commission. And he was mischievous and he decided to do something different. Those agents got paid $34,000 in commission because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Do we make a habit of it? No. But if you have done the work and put in the effort, you are due to be paid. Just like everybody that goes to, I'm going to use Walmart as an example. They clock in at 9 a.m. They leave at 5 p.m. They clock back in at 7 a.m. They leave at 3 p.m. all week long. If they were to come on a Friday and their employer looked at them and said, I just didn't feel like paying you this week. See you later, bye. That ain't gonna happen. And it's not gonna happen with realtors either, under my watch. So with all that said, they are agreeing to pay you a commission if anything transfers from one person to another. Lease, sale, land contract, lease to own, any transfer of possession or deed or anything like that, you are due a commission. The other thing that you need to know is that at RE/MAX Elite, you have total control of what commission you charge. If you feel like the only way you are able to get this deal is if you charge, and I can talk about this because we're all at RE/MAX, but if you are at Elmar and they start talking numbers, shut it down. Say, we cannot talk about commissions in here. I'm absolutely not going to be part of this conversation because federal trade, no. Somebody's coming after you from the federal government. What is this? Somebody can help me with that. But if you decide that you need to charge 5% commission because they're going to have 2 transactions and you want them both and you want to give them a little bit of a discount, or you can look at them and go, I would love to give you a discount, but my broker won't let me. It's totally okay. Blame me, because they can hate me all day long as they use you. Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be the, like I'm calling your mommy. I'm telling your mommy, like when we were kids, I'm telling your mommy. I can be that. I can be that person that goes, if you don't do this or we don't do this, then we'll just call my broker and she'll handle it. Because I will. So you have total control of your commissions. We as an office generally charge 6%, but you can go 5, you can go 4, you can go 7, you can go 10. My theory is if it's a lot or an empty piece of land, it's like 50,000 or less, I charge 10. Simply because it is as much work to sell that tiny little plot of land for $50,000 and to only get 1,800 or whatever it may be. It's just not worth it to me because you then have to split it. And if you split 6 times, well, let's say it's 30,000. So 6 times 3 is 1,800. You're getting $900 a piece. It's not really worth. So I charge 10%. So that would be 3,000. If it's a $30,000 plot of land, you get 15. I get 15. I figure that's a little more fair. You can also do flat fees. You can say, to sell your house, I'm going to charge you $5,000. So you can do any type of commission structure that you want. If you feel like you need to be creative to get a listing and you really don't know what to do, call me. I'm available. This box down here, this little line down here that says any part of it or within, yeah, right there, any part of it or within a protection period. This only applies if the buyer is introduced to the property at the time that the listing is valid, and then they conveniently wait until the listing is expired to go to the seller to kick you out and to directly negotiate with the seller. That protection period is only for people that have seen the property during the listing. If you do something crazy like 180 days, no court is going to enforce a 180-day protection period. It needs to be probably 30, 60, or 90 days, depending on the area, depending on how much the market moves. Generally, I put 90 days, but it can't be unreasonable. So if you want to think about, oh, is this going to make it through court? You're probably really edging on the side of not going to happen if you do something as high as 180, which I see all the time. It's like they think six months, 6 month listing, 6 month protection period. That's 12 months. Ain't gonna happen. Sorry. Limited dual agency. This just discloses that you are acting as a seller's agent. However, the seller acknowledges that the listing broker may also represent the buyers. Should any buyer broker be interested in the property which is subject to this exclusive right to sell, the seller, upon notification by the listing broker, may authorize you, the listing broker, to serve as a dual agent. The seller can tell you no. The seller can say, nada, not happening. You represent me, you don't represent them. That didn't happen. And you have to abide by it because your fiduciary is to that seller, because that's the contract you entered into first. If you're standing there and you're like, this buyer wants this house, the best scenario for you to do, if your seller will not allow it, is to then refer, if she's a listing agent, I'm the buyer, she would then call Sharon and say, Sharon, I'm sending you Christy. I'm sending you Christy. I've already shown it. She wants it. I know she wants to make an offer. Here's this buyer. You just kick me back a referral fee. Totally legal, because you've done what your seller has requested of you. When you are dual agent, just side note, do you realize that if I know that Mary has it listed for $259, but she has told me she will take $250, that if I now represent this buyer as the dual agent, I cannot say to the buyer, Mary will take $250, make the offer at $250. And therefore I cannot come back to Mary and say, they love this house so much, make them pay $265. Because our commissions are based on percentages. It is a huge issue in the community where people always think we're trying to get the highest price or the better price because our commission is higher. That's not the case. Our fiduciary is to negotiate what is the best situation for the buyer and what is the best situation for the seller. Even in negotiations, even in repair negotiations, you say, this is what my buyer is asking. And then you say nothing else. You don't say they'll eliminate 5, 6, and 7. Just tell your seller, let's get this done. You can't, because you're representing the buyer. And if they want to put something on there that you don't want to put on there, you got to put it on there anyway. And then you just smile and wave when you hand it to the listing agent, because you can't help it. It's your buyer. You represent them. The cool part about our business, just like they know on Zoom, is that you'll have a deal with an agent and you'll be at each other's throats for a hot minute. And then once the deal's done, you're like, see you at the Elmore event, Mary. And then you'll see each other later, because it's not us. We're doing our jobs. It's the buyers, and everybody understands, although you want to kick them in the behind sometimes, it's not them, it's their buyer. Title number 4. Yes.
If they say no to the dual agency, is there something that you have to mark or sign? Or
No, this is just telling them about it. So this is
So
just
they say no,
disclosing.
okay. They say no,
Yeah.
you just know that it's no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Title, they have to provide an unencumbered title. They have to convey by general warranty deed, which is the most widely received deed. They have to have usual covenants that a title company will ensure. All easements of record and restrictions and improvements of property have to be through planning and zoning and have to be approved by the state. There can't be any like surprises, except, and then you actually have a line here that says except. Prime example, this little 5 acres in Paris, Kentucky. I put it on the market for one of our managers, our property managers. And I get a call today from the neighbor, and the neighbor says, I just needed to let you know that I have a 15-foot wide easement down the right side of that lot, and I'm not giving it up. Don't ask, and you need to make sure the next people know about it. And I was like, interesting. Did not know that. I didn't say I didn't know. I was like, okay, like, what's going on? What's happening? And then this seller next door, owner next door, proceeded to tell me that there's also deed restrictions on the property that it cannot be farmed in any way. No corn, no cows, no ducks, no chickens, no nothing. No farming of any activity can be done on this land. What do you do with 5 acres? Chickens, a couple nice gardens. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, boy, the value of this land just went. So I had a call with the owner because I didn't know. He didn't fill that in. So it's always good to ask, is there anything I need to know about this house? Is there anybody that can walk up on this property and not tell anybody because they have an easement? Are there any restrictions that are weird, like you can't farm? Are you getting all the mineral rights? Are there rubies under this dirt and Delta owns them? Like, let's talk about it. Just have that, make it silly, but have that conversation. Possession, this is a big one right now. Possession to give possession, when? At closing with deed, And when you're talking about possession in this listing contract, you need to look at Mr. Seller and say, Mr. Seller, do you realize if we close on June 15th, your butt got to be out before closing on June 15th if I put possession at closing? If I put negotiable, then you are agreeing to negotiate the closing with the buyer. It may be before closing, it may be 3 days before, it may be 5 days after. It's negotiable. A lot of people want you to write negotiable right there because they don't want to lock themselves into this is what has to happen, because that's what they're agreeing to in these summons. Earnest money, it just describes earnest money and what it is. It's the deposit. I coin it as the glue that holds the contract together. If you didn't have glue or tape, a lot of things would fall apart. So the earnest money is that glue. It keeps everybody's interest focused on moving this toward the closing table. This is interesting, and most people don't know that our contracts say this, but let me read it to you. The event, the buyer's default, and the earnest money is relinquished by the buyers as liquidated damages, said earnest money deposit shall be divided 1/2 to the listing broker and 1/2 to the seller. So, did you know that, EG? No, see, but people don't know that that's there. However, brokers, 1/2 of the earnest money cannot exceed the amount of the commission that would have been earned on the sale. So if you have a seller and you have a terrible buyer and they walk away and you get $15,000 worth of earnest money, woo, I was getting paid. If your commission is $3,000 and you think you're getting 7, you're wrong. You're getting 3. The seller gets the remainder. Okay. This happens 1 out of every 10 times. Most agents, most brokerages just give it to the seller. They just say, here, take it. I don't want to fight you over it, take it. But it is in our contracts. It is there. Advertising, it says that you can put a for sale sign in the yard, a sold sign on the property, and you can advertise it in any way that you deem appropriate. RE/MAX has an additional regulation on any advertising that we do, and they call it morally acceptable. So their morally acceptable is, if you work in a strip club today and you're on this call, I'm sorry, but they deem strip clubs not morally acceptable places to advertise a RE/MAX branded item. They actually say the same thing about the liquor barn. So those two things, like when I first opened the RE/MAX 20 years ago, maybe, I wanted to do an ad with all the other people in Browning Crossing because that's where I was. And they had this big ad, and the front of the ad was that liquor barn that's now the jumpy airplane, the jumpy place. It was that liquor store, and they went, let me put it in there because it was morally unacceptable. Quite frustrating. So that's your RE/MAX tip of the day. If you do an advert or an advertisement and the seller says, take that down, you have to be respectful and take it down. If they say you can advertise exterior pictures only and no interior pictures, you have to accept that. So there are a lot of different things that the sellers can put restrictions on you for in advertising, but the main thing you have to do is, second to their requests, you have to, number one, make sure you are following all advertising rules. The RE/MAX name, not just RE/MAX, but RE/MAX Elite Realty, RE/MAX in all caps, not R, little e, little a, little n, none of those, all caps. It's very important that you follow the trademarks and the fair housing laws. You can't, I think even Facebook and stuff now have some restrictions on how you can market listings to areas based on the fair housing laws. Fair housing is the next one we're going to talk about. You can't, to offer said property without regard to race, color, sex, creed, religion, national origin, handicap, familial status, or sexual orientation. You can put, instead of writing something like handicap accessible in your marketing remarks, you can type wheelchair accessible, or you can type things that let the reader know that this is a building or a home that someone who is bound to a wheelchair or a walker or something like that can get through fairly easy. No steps, one level living, like keywords that you can use that kind of like skirt around that whole. You can't market directly to one facet of the population. You have to include all. Then also, you have to do things like this in your marketing remarks. You cannot say, this home is perfect for the growing family, or this home is great for a retired couple looking to downsize. You can't say any of that. You can say things like, are you looking to upgrade? Are you looking to downsize? Do you need more space? Are you out of space? Think other things like that that kind of say the same thing, but they're not they don't exclude a group. If I'm single and I want a 15,000 square foot home, then I should be able to buy a 15,000 square foot home and just walk the halls. So that's right. I get my steps in. Oh man, that's what I'm missing. My steps. Shoot, I'm putting that back on. That's important stuff. Let's see, lockbox. Oh, accuracy, disclosure. This is just saying that, hey, Mr. Seller, if I walk in and I see a huge crack in your foundation and water's running out of it because I know there's a spring on the property, and you use take a 5-gallon bucket and you clean out your crawl space every 5 or 6 weeks because it's so full of water. If you don't put that on the disclosure, I'm telling people. Because your fiduciary is to them, but your second fiduciary is to the transaction, to the property, that you disclose to the other professional in the business that there is, in fact, a defect that was not disclosed. When the seller signs the seller disclosure, they are also saying, I've told you everything I know. So, lockbox, not everybody wants one. I actually had one lady call me this morning and said, get this lockbox off my sign and get this lockbox off my door and get this sign out of my yard because someone broke into her house last night thinking that it was a vacant house, and she's a 65, 66-year-old single lady, and it scared the bejeebies out of her. So the fact is that although these are things that are common in our marketplace, like a sign in the yard and a lockbox on the door, doesn't mean the seller has to let you do it. Inspections, this is kind of cool. The seller has to allow any property inspection that does not damage the property. So if they say they want to come in and do a radon inspection, as long as the radon inspection doesn't damage the property, the sellers have to abide by it if it's required in the contract. If they want to come in and take a big sheet of drywall to go test it for lead-based paint, can't do that because it's damaged the property. But the sellers have to let reasonable inspections to be done, including the one that says that they can do a final walkthrough within 48 hours of closing. And then this tiny box here at the end or tiny paragraph here at the end that is squared up nicely by a box says that they have read this contract. And this contract is legally binding, and the broker, if successful in selling the property, will receive a commission, and if they don't, then they have to pay. If the broker has to sue the seller for commission, we as an office are entitled to receive all costs, including reasonable attorney's fees. So if you actually got to go to court and fight for your commission, one that you've earned, then the seller now is responsible to pay for your attorney's fees. So that is the listing contract. Does anybody have any questions? There was something else about commission that I wanted to mention. Oh, there's a couple things. Back on the commission section, you can have what's called a variable rate commission. And what that means is that if I list the property, I'm going to earn X%. If you list the property, if I sell the property as the listing agent, I will earn X%. If you sell the property and you are a buyer's representative and I represent the seller, then it's X%. I have to disclose that on the MLS because that's called a variable rate commission, and it puts the buyer and the buyer's agent in a lower level of ability to negotiate than if I brought the buyer to. So if we are in a multiple offer situation and I have the buyer, And my commission is 4% because I'm doing both sides and that's what I agreed to with the seller. And then Sharon brings the buyer. And I said, if another agent brings the buyer, then the commission is 6%. We'll each get 3. Then your buyer's automatically in a very bad negotiating position. They're going to negotiate with my contract because they make more automatically. And every realtor has to know that going in. So there is a box. You'll see it on this input sheet. I'll show it to you when I find it. But you'll see it because it says variable rate commission. Yeah, I do see it, but when we get there, I'll show it to you. So you have to disclose that. So you can do that as well. You can say, hey, Mr. Seller, if I sell it myself, I'm going to pay 4%. You pay me 4%. If another agent brings the buyer, then you have to pay me 6% because I got to split it with them. And that's called a variable rate commission. So then the next sheet is your residential input sheet form. There's a lot of questions on here. We're not going to go through them one by one. I will say, Paul, go ahead and scroll down to almost all the boxes. And we're going to go back up to the, keep going. You'll see these, they have all the boxes on them. That is literally almost, it's essentially all the amenities that you will have in the house. If I'm sitting with the seller and we're doing this paperwork and I'm right in front of them and we're using pens, like not digitally, but we're using pens, I literally hand it to them and say, here, check all those boxes. Because it's going to be a whole lot easier for me to say, check these boxes, than me go through and ask them 964 questions. And then when they get done checking all the boxes, I look back through it and see if they missed anything or if I don't understand anything. So when I go to put it on MLS, I can go, okay, well, what do you mean? You have a walk-in attic. This is a ranch. They're like, oh, actually, check that. I'll put it in like you can walk in my house. You see what I'm saying? So I go through it and I check it. And these tiny little boxes on the bottom, that means a signature. Initials, not a signature. But you can, if you continue to go down, we'll just stay with this form, Paul, continue to go down. On this second sheet, you'll see like pool features and all that. You can break out the rooms, the individual rooms. You can call it living room, dining room, den, bedroom, primary, whatever. And you can put what level of the house it's on. You can also write it. And then if you are just, you know, the overachiever that you are, you can do like room dimensions. A lot of other MLSs require room dimensions. We don't. So you'll go somewhere else and they'll be like, oh, look at all these room dimensions. And people that come from an area that has room dimensions will constantly tell you that we should have room dimensions, but we don't. So, so anyway, and then the seller signs, and then you sign as the listing agent. I will also note back on the listing contract, I'm sorry, on the second page, it says accepted by a listing broker, the address, that address is the address of your office. It's not your home address, it is the address of your office. And the byline, you can type my name in there. You can write Christy Gooch because that's what goes in the listing broker line. And the byline is your signature. You don't have to send me these to sign. Just, there's some people that like to, but you don't have to. It's not required. So accepted dates, listing broker is my name typed. Address is the office that you are in. So if you're in the Danville office, use the Danville address, Lexington, Richmond, so on and so forth. And then you make that buy box your signature box. So you sign it there. So, and then the final part of this form I want to go over is this. This is the part of the information that is less fun to gather. It's actually probably my least favorite part. If they don't have children in schools, then you have to call the school board and verify that the schools are what the MLS says they are, because the MLS has been wrong before. And if you sell a house and they're supposed to go to Jesse Clark and they actually go to Morton, I don't know where these schools are, so I'm just making it up. You're in trouble. You're in big trouble. So if you don't know the schools or you're not for sure, school board, you give them the address, they'll tell you what schools. It's real simple. Subdivision, it's usually on the deed or on the PPA. There might be like, I can't think of one exactly, but let's just make up Gainesway. Gainesway may show up as Gainesway Estates on the PBA, but we lovingly just call it Gainesway. So it might be a little different like that, and that's okay. But if it shows up Gainesway on the PBA and you're putting it in Harrods Hills, you're probably making a mistake. Harrods Hills is total opposite side of town, just in case anybody needs to know. On market date, this is very important these days, because remember, the listing date's the day you're there, June 1st. The on market date will be June 6th, and the expiration date will be 6 months and 6 days in our example, after the listing starts. Then you have listing price. The agreement type will always be exclusive right to sell or exclusive right to lease, meaning that you have the right to lease it. It's that one, Paul. Yeah, it's right. You can't see my cursor, can you? Halfway down, big box, right above it. No, other box. Yeah, right there by your mouse. Whoop, right there. There you go. Commission to selling office is right next to that. It's so cute. I've seen some of these new agents that are coming in and they're filling out this form, and you know, they got a little bit of an ego and they really don't want to ask me to check their stuff, but you really need to ask me to check your stuff. It's okay. Nobody's gonna like smack you on the hand. And they put that all the commission goes to the selling office by golly, because they're confused. The commission to the selling office is what percentage or what split of what you're charging on this form that will then go to the buyer's agent if they bring a buyer. If you want to give them all of it, we need to have a conversation. But it's usually split 50-50. So if you've got 5%, a lot of times people offer 2.5. Some people go on and offer 3 to the listing agent and they keep 2. If you are 6%, it's 3 and 3. If you're 7%, there are some out there. The listing agent usually keeps 4 and offers the buyer's agent 3. This is where you will also see the variable rate commission. You check no or you check yes. The only time it's variable is if the commission is different in any situation. Does that make sense? If you go up one box to location, tax, and legal info, tax district, deed book, deed page, school district, tax rate, tax ID will all be on the PBA. And when you have access, if you don't know how to get access to the PBA, then somebody will show you. You can probably call Elmar 276-3503 and they'll tell you exactly where it's at. The only thing that you're not going to see on the PBA in this box is the primary subtype, which is either condo, townhouse, or single family. It's either attached, an apartment-like home, or it's detached. So there's only 3 kinds. And the area, long time ago, Fayette County was split into this weird 4-section area by the Herald Leader, and it's stuck. So we have 4 areas in Fayette County, and they go as follows. From Richmond Road to a little bit around to Nicholasville Road is area 3. From Nicholasville Road all the way over to about Leestown Road-ish is area 4. From Leestown Road-ish to like Russell Cave is area 1. And then from Russell Cave all the way back over to Richmond Road is area 2.
Is that on PBAs?
No. This is made up realtor nonsense. You're not gonna find it anywhere. So if you don't know what quote unquote area it's in, pull up another listing on that street and it'll tell you. And I doubt it's gonna be wrong. Then if you go up to the next address information, that's simple. Zip +4, no one cares. Just do the 40356 or whatever it is. And then your listing member information. So everything on here is super simple. This is the stuff you have to dig and find. Like you've got to go to government websites or the MLS or whatever to dig and find. This is my least favorite sheet. I think I've said that a couple times. But down below on the general property description where it says bedrooms, yeah, right there where you're at. This is where you list bedrooms, bathrooms, full bath, half bath, year built. We used to say age, but age isn't really a recognized number in the appraisal world. Year built is, because there's nothing else that says, oh, that house is 86 years old. It says it was built in 1955. So construction status, this is only if it's new. Lot size square feet. So Google is a fantastic machine. If it says it's 0.45 of an acre, please don't do the math yourself. Please Google how many square feet is in 0.45 of an acre and let it tell you, because that's what it's asking. I couldn't tell you how many square footage is in an acre. I think it's like 26 or 56,000. I don't know, some big number. Lot size source is super important. Is it? What is it?
I think it's 26,000.
Is it? Did I get
26,453 or something.
Oh my gosh.
It's just recent.
I said 26. I don't have this for 26.
Totally wrong, but you're close.
Close. I feel good about it. Lot size source is super important, and here is another story, and we are almost done. We went over 8 minutes. Lot size is important. We had an agent in our office who had a property listed 10 years ago. They didn't sell it. They took it off the market. The seller divided the property in half and sold a piece of it to someone else. 10 years forward, he calls the same agent and says, hey, come list this property. Here's the plat. The agent looks and sees that the property is smaller. Oh, this property is smaller. The agent then goes to the PDA and looks and sees that the PDA says it's bigger than what's on the plat. And she goes, I'm going to list it with that one, even though she had the plat in her hand. Shame on you. The PDA said 0.94. The plat said 0.49. What do you think happened? Yeah. So the agent goes into, it gets worse. The agent goes into the MLS, and I love her. She just didn't think clearly this day, and said, okay, I'm listing it. I'm putting it in here. I'm listing it, blah, blah, blah. She types in 1.94 by accident. So now she not only has a whole half acre more, she's got an acre and a half more than what was actually for sale. But guess what? She sells it in multiple offers. Shocker. And the guy, who's a preacher, I'm just putting that out there, bought it and closes. During the process of the closing, they asked for a plat from her twice. She sends the plat to said realtor who represents buyer and spells her name wrong in the email twice. So said plat that could have solved all the issues was never delivered until closing. He gets the plat at closing, Mr. Buyer. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, that's interesting. Folds it up, puts it in his pocket. Never, ever looks at it. 2 weeks go by. He just, oh, look what I found in my pocket. Opens up the plat. I'm so animated. Don't you guys appreciate that? And says 0.49. I bought 1.5 acres or 1.94 acres. I didn't buy half an acre. What the heck? He then, Mr. Preacher, starts hounding said agent and threatens that if she doesn't pay him $13,000, he is taking her to the Kentucky Girls State. Then Christy got involved. And I realized all that happened, all the error, all the whatever that happened. And we had hired an attorney. It's still a little bit in litigation. But here's what I want you to remember is that source, she didn't fill out the source. That's where I'm getting. The lot size source is extremely important because there is a monkey of responsibility that we all carry on our backs. And if we don't put that monkey on someone else or something else, it will stay on our back. And because that box wasn't filled in, she did not disclose where she got the information. So with all that said, it was a clerical error on her part. Her E&O insurance is going to cover the error because it wasn't fraudulent, like she didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't fraudulent. And because the guy can still build what he wanted to build on the lot, even though it's an acre and a half. Well, there is no recourse, period. So with all that said, she's probably gonna get her hand slapped by the Kentucky Real Estate Commission, but that's nothing compared to having to write a check for $13,000. Make sure when you're filling out the stuff that you get from a third-party source, you cite the source. Just like in English papers at school, you cite your source. And if it's unknown, then you say unknown. If it's, I don't know because I didn't look, then you say, I don't know because I didn't look. If it's unknown because you can't find the information, unknown and don't know are two totally different things. Does anyone have any questions? Was that helpful? Really?
Yeah, I took a CMA class a few weeks ago, and then I took a Flex technology class this morning, and now this on top of it.
And you're like, how about you guys? Did you find it helpful? Yes? Awesome. I think we lost a couple. Grace and Cindy and Angie, got so many nice people on here. Did you guys find it helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
I'm still here and it was
You were
very
here?
helpful.
I think my computer's muted, so I can't hear anybody. Paul just likes for me not to talk. Awesome. Awesome, guys. Well, you have a wonderful Thursday. And we'll do another complete agent development in a couple weeks. Angie, I'm reaching out to you. We got to sit down and do goal setting. I'll talk to you guys very soon. See ya.